Okay, so here's a system that does not have a solution. Now, why would this be the case? Well, if you remember from my previous videos, you have an x squared right here. That means that this equation is quadratic. And when you graph a quadratic equation, you're going to get a U shape. And that U shape is called a parabola. Now, if you look at the equation below it, you'll notice that this x has an exponent of 1, not 2. So this is going to be a linear equation. Linear. And the reason why it's linear is because it produces a line when you graph it. So you're going to have a parabola, which is that U shape right here, and you're going to have a line. And when you graph them both together, what will happen with these is, since it has no solution, they'll actually never cross. So there's no point in this solution set. But let's take a look at this and see how it's done. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set the quadratic equation on the left side, and I'm going to put the linear equation on the right side. So I'm going to take the 2x squared plus x, put that on the left side, and then on the right side, I'm going to have the x minus 4. So I always start off by putting the quadratic equation on the left side and the linear equation on the right side. That's going to help me out when I get to the factoring step. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to get everything to the left side. So I want to get the x to the left side, and I want to get the negative 4 to the left side, so that the only thing left on the right side is going to be nothing or 0. Okay? Now to get rid of the x, since it's positive, I have to subtract it from both sides. Make sure you do it on both sides of the equation. And to get rid of the negative 4, I have to add 4 to both sides. Just make sure you actually do it to both sides. Okay, so we're doing it to both sides, and what happens is, on the right side, everything cancels out, so these cancel, I'm left with a 0. I bring down my equal sign, and then what do I have on the left side? Well, pretty much everything, but the x's will cancel. So this x and this x, since one is positive and the other one is negative, they're going to cancel each other out. So I can just cross them out right now. So now the only thing left on the left side is going to be the 2x squared. I bring that down, and the plus 4. Okay, so now is usually the point where I factor the left side. I see that they have a greatest common factor of 2. I can take that out. So when I put the 2 on the outside, I'm going to have something left on the inside of the parentheses. And the right side is still equal to 0. So what am I left with? I'm left with x squared plus 2. And that's because I'm pretty much dividing everything by 2 as it is. So the 2x squared divided by 2 is going to give me x squared. And the 4, if I divide that by 2, that's just going to give me 2. Okay? So now I'm at a situation where I have a 2 out in front. I can get rid of that by dividing both sides by 2. Dividing both sides by 2. What happens here is the 2's cancel out on the left side, and I can bring down the x squared plus 2. Over here on the right side, 0 divided by 2 would just be 0, of course. So now I have an equation x squared plus 2 equals 0. Now, I can't factor this anymore, but what I can do is I can subtract 2 from both sides. So subtract 2. What happens here? The 2 minus 2 are going to cancel each other out. The 0 minus 2 is going to give me negative 2, and the x squared comes down. The x squared just comes down as it is. Okay, so now I can get the x by itself by taking the square root of both sides, because I need to get rid of this square up here. And the way I get rid of an exponent of 2 is by taking the second root, or the square root of both sides. So I'm just going to take the square root of both sides. When I do that, I take the square root of x squared, and then over here, I take the square root of a negative 2. But do be aware that you need to have a plus or minus on this side. Okay, So now I have plus or minus the square root of negative 2. I really can't take the square root of 2 because that's just going to give me a long decimal. It's irrational, so I'm not really going to get a number for the square root of negative 2. But I do know that I can take the negative out as an I, the imaginary number I. So the negative is going to come out as an I. What that's going to look like is plus or minus I times the square root of positive 2. Notice that the negative came out as an I. So now I have positive 2 under the radical. Over on the left side, the square root and the square are going to cancel, and I'm only left with x. Okay, so what this means is I have one x value, which is going to be a positive I root 2, but my other x value is going to be a negative I, square root of 2. Now these two answers are both imaginary numbers. Imaginary numbers. And what that means is when I want to show this on a graph, I'm going to have my U-shaped parabola as usual. I'm going to have a U-shape. That's my 2x squared plus x up here. But my line is actually not going to go through it. So it may look something like this. It has to be below the U-shape. Okay? Now, basically what this means is, since the line is not crossing the U-shape, that means there is no solution. You could say no solution for this system. Or you can write down the empty set. This is what's known as the empty set. Now, why would I write down an empty set? Well, it's just to show that when you have no solutions, your solution set is going to be empty. So there's not really going to be anything inside the solution set. It's an empty set. And that's another way you can show that this system has no solution.